the peaceful forest. In a vast, enchanted forest, where the sunlight filtered softly through the thick green canopy and the breeze whispered through the leaves like a lullaby, a sense of peace prevailed. This was no ordinary forest. It was a haven where animals of all sizes and kinds lived together in perfect harmony. Towering trees stood like gentle guardians over the land, their roots tangled with burrows and nests, their branches heavy with fruit for those nimble enough to reach. At the very heart of this forest lived King Elio, the majestic elephant known for his wisdom and kindness. He was not only the largest creature in the land, but also the most respected. His wrinkled gray skin bore the marks of many seasons, and his tusks, long and curved, gleamed under the dappled sunlight. But it wasn't his size or strength that made the animals trust him, it was his gentle heart. King Elio's herd, a family of elephants both young and old, followed him with admiration and pride. They were the forest protectors, helping to clear fallen trees, create watering holes, and even shelter smaller creatures under their broad, leafy parasols when the sun was too hot or the rains too fierce. Near the outer edges of the elephants' grazing fields, tucked beneath a grassy hill and between a maze of roots and rocks, lived another royal figure, King Milo, the Mouse King. Though he was no larger than a pine cone, Milo ruled his community with a heart as grand as any lion's. His coat was a soft, dusty brown, and his black eyes sparkled with intelligence. His people, hundreds of mice, lived in intricately carved tunnels and cozy underground homes filled with stores of grains, berries, and nuts. The mice were industrious and clever. They built pulley systems from vines, carved tiny furniture from twigs, and always worked together to build and protect their community. Though small, they were proud of their home and their peaceful way of life. For years, the elephants and mice had lived near each other without incident. The elephants, with their lumbering footsteps, wandered where they pleased, and the mice stayed hidden in their burrows. But as the elephants grew in number and wandered closer to the hill where the mice lived, problems began to arise. One spring morning, just after the dew had dried and the air was thick with birdsong, King Milo climbed to a lookout branch near the edge of the hill. What he saw made his heart sink. A line of elephants, unaware, was trampling across the field. Their massive feet crushed the soft earth, and beneath it, several mouse tunnels. Tiny homes collapsed like paper, food stores were buried, and frightened mice scrambled to safety. King Milo rushed down and gathered his council. "We must do something," he said firmly. "They do not mean to harm us, but their footsteps destroy everything we've built. We cannot move our entire village. We must speak to King Elio." A hush fell over the gathered mice. It was one thing to talk among themselves about the mighty elephants, but to speak directly to their king? That was a bold move. Still, Milo stood tall. "I will go myself. I will speak with him with respect and honesty. It is the only way." And so, later that day, accompanied by a group of his most trusted mice, King Milo made the long journey across the open field. It was a treacherous trek for such small creatures, dodging falling leaves and hopping over tiny puddles that felt like lakes to them. But Milo's determination never wavered. When they reached the elephants' resting place near the great watering hole, the mice were overwhelmed by the sight of the giants. Their feet were like tree trunks, their trunks swaying like vines, and their voices rumbled like distant storms. King Elio stood at the center of the clearing, speaking gently to a young calf. Milo stepped forward, his whiskers twitching nervously but his voice steady. "Your Majesty, King Elio," he called out. Elio turned his massive head toward the voice. It took a moment before he spotted the tiny figure at his feet. Carefully, he knelt down, bringing his large ears closer to the mouse. "I am King Milo of the Hill," Milo said, bowing slightly. "I come to you not in anger, but with a humble plea. Your herd, in its travels, has unknowingly destroyed many of our homes and tunnels. We mice are small, but we too are part of this forest. I ask only that you consider a new path to the lake, one that spares our village." Elio listened, his wise eyes narrowing with concern. "I had no idea," he said gently, his voice like a drumroll softened by moss. "We never meant harm. I thank you for your courage in coming to me, King Milo." The other elephants gathered around, murmuring among themselves. One of the elder elephants leaned close to Elio. "He speaks with great honor," she said. "We must not ignore this." Elio nodded. "You have my word, King Milo. From this day forward, we will change our path. Your village will remain safe." Milo's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, King Elio. You have shown us great mercy. We may be small, but we remember kindness." As the mice turned to leave, the elephants trumpeted in approval, a sound that echoed through the forest like a celebration. Birds flew from the treetops, and even the breeze seemed to carry a note of peace. And so, an unexpected agreement was forged between the largest and smallest of the forest creatures. Though their sizes were vastly different, their hearts found common ground. Little did they know their newfound friendship would soon be tested by a danger far greater than any of them had imagined. A shadow over the trees. The forest basked in newfound harmony. The elephants took a new route to the great watering hole, and the mice felt safe once more in their hilltop village. King Elio and King Milo, now bonded in friendship, began meeting every moonrise to share news and laughter under the starlit sky. But deep within the forest's tangled heart, where shadows lingered and sunbeams dared not enter, something stirred. A thundering crash echoed one night, startling birds into flight and sending rabbits darting into their burrows. Trees trembled, and the earth quaked. The next morning, King Elio was awakened by a flurry of panic. A group of deer had sprinted into the elephant camp, their eyes wide with fear. "Something is tearing through the trees," cried Daria, the eldest doe. "Trees are being pushed down. There is something enormous." Elio's eyes narrowed. He raised his trunk and trumpeted, a deep, resonant sound that silenced the clearing. "Prepare the herd. We will investigate at once." Meanwhile, at the hill, the mice sensed danger too. Tiny tremors shook their tunnels. Walls of soil began to collapse. King Milo sent his scouts in every direction. They returned breathless. "It's a giant machine," squeaked one, "with spinning claws and sharp teeth. It's eating the forest." Panic gripped the village. The mice had no idea what a machine was, but they knew one thing for certain: it was destroying everything in its path. Milo called an emergency gathering. "This is not a time to hide," he declared. "We must warn King Elio. Our forest is under attack." That evening, under a sky painted with orange and lavender, Milo and his swiftest messengers scurried across the grasslands to reach the elephants. The journey was more dangerous than before. The ground was freshly torn, and strange smells lingered in the air: burnt wood, metal, oil. As they arrived at the elephant camp, they were relieved to see Elio waiting. "We've seen the destruction," Elio said solemnly. "This is no ordinary danger. It is something the two of us cannot face alone." Milo nodded. Then we must face it together. The next morning, a group of elephants and mice ventured into the heart of the forest. They stopped at the edge of what had once been a lush grove. Now, it was nothing more than splinters and stumps. Trees lay broken like snapped twigs, birds chirped nervously from afar, and the soil was scarred with deep tracks. Then they saw it, a gigantic, roaring beast of steel and smoke. It rolled forward on massive wheels, tearing through trees with whirling claws and metal jaws. Its lights glowed like angry eyes, and its breath was black smoke. The mice trembled. "It's alive!" gasped one. "No," said Elio, his voice a low rumble. "It's a machine. It belongs to the humans. They do not know we live here." King Milo's whiskers twitched. "So they're not evil?" Elio shook his head. "No, but they're unaware. They think this is just land. Trees to cut, earth to build on. We must find a way to show them we live here too." The mice gathered, whispering excitedly. They were small, but quick and clever. And then an idea bloomed. "We can't move that giant machine," said Milo, "but we can stop it. Together." Back at the hill, the mice worked overnight, spinning threads, gathering berries, and even collecting shiny pebbles. Meanwhile, the elephants dug deep holes and moved fallen trees to block paths. When the sun rose, their trap was ready. As the machine roared back toward the clearing, it found the forest changed. Holes yawned before it, vines tangled its path, and small stones rolled under its wheels. Confused, it halted, and then the final step began. A flood of mice, led by Milo, swarmed the machine. They scurried into vents, climbed the wheels, and pulled wires with their nimble paws. From the top of a tree, King Elio used his trunk to wave a giant leafy branch, signaling the humans. Inside the machine, the human operators froze. The monitors blinked. Lights flickered. One man peered outside and gasped. Hundreds of animals, small and large, stood united. Elephants trumpeted. Birds flew overhead in perfect circles. Rabbits and deer lined the edge of the clearing. It was a peaceful protest, but impossible to ignore. The humans shut off the machine. Silence fell. Elio stepped forward. He didn't speak their language, but his presence was enough. One human stepped down, knelt, and laid a hand on the earth. He looked at the mice, then at the elephants. Slowly, he nodded. They understood. By sunset, the humans left. The machine was gone, and the forest, though wounded, could begin to heal. That night, Elio and Milo stood together once more. "We did it," said Milo, his voice soft but proud. "Yes," Elio agreed. "Together." And in the rustling of the trees, the chirping of crickets, and the peace that returned, the forest whispered its approval. The council of creatures. The forest was quiet after the humans left, but the animals knew their work wasn't done. The giant machine was gone, yet the scars it had left behind still ran deep. Trees lay shattered. Flowers had been crushed. Paths once trodden gently by hooves and paws were now broken with ruts. King Elio gathered his herd in a shaded glade the next morning. The air was cool, and birds perched nearby, listening intently. "We stopped them once," Elio rumbled, "but what if they return?" Murmurs of concern rippled through the elephants. Calves huddled close to their mothers. Even the proud bulls looked uneasy. Miles away, atop the Mouse Village hill, King Milo met with his council. The tiny creatures sat in a wide ring made of acorn caps and pebbles. They saw us, Milo said. They understood we live here. But humans forget. If more come, we'll need all the forest behind us. He tapped his tiny foot. We must unite every creature in the forest. No more hiding. We must show them our strength lies in our unity. And so the Council of Creatures was born. Milo sent swift-footed runners to the deepest burrows and tallest trees. Elio sent word by trumpet and stampede. Squirrels, foxes, owls, deer, badgers, frogs, and even snakes agreed to send representatives. For the first time in memory, every species prepared together under one canopy. When the day arrived, the glade near the watering hole became a grand meeting place. Leaves had been cleared. A smooth boulder served as a stage. Flowers were gathered into colorful piles. Birds flew overhead, calling out the arrival of each delegation. The mice came first, led by Milo in a golden-threaded cape. Then the elephants, tall and majestic, led by Elio. The owls perched on tree limbs above. The frogs hopped in, croaking politely. Even the secretive foxes appeared, their amber eyes gleaming. The clearing buzzed with curiosity and nerves. Never before had predator and prey stood so near without fear. King Elio stepped forward. "Friends of the forest," he began, "we face a danger greater than ourselves. Not from each other, but from those who do not see us, those who forget that this land breathes." The animals nodded solemnly. King Milo followed. "We mice are small. Alone, we are often overlooked. But together, we stopped a giant. Together, we made the humans see us. That is the strength we must keep." A squirrel chattered from a tree branch. "But how can we trust foxes not to hunt us, or hawks not to swoop down when our backs are turned?" Silence fell. A sleek fox stepped forward. Her name was Vexa. "We foxes hunt," she said calmly, "but not today, not here. Even we see that if the forest falls, we all fall with it." An old owl fluffed his feathers. "We are not asking you to change your nature, only to agree that we will protect our home. Together." Milo nodded. "We will each remain who we are, but we must unite in purpose." From there, the council debated late into the night. They created a forest accord, a promise to warn one another of danger, to protect the heart of the forest, and to educate the young about their shared duty. Then came the question, how would they send a message to the humans? "A sign," offered a badger, "one they can't ignore." "Something beautiful," said a butterfly, "so they will listen." "Something bold," added an owl, "so they will remember." It was Vexa who proposed the idea. "What if we plant something?" "Plant?" asked a frog. "Yes," said the fox. "A giant symbol, something they can see from above, something made by all of us, growing from the ground." Milo's eyes sparkled. "A forest emblem." Elio nodded. "A new beginning." And so the council agreed. Each creature would contribute seeds, flowers, vines, stones, feathers. A symbol would rise at the center of the clearing, visible even from the sky. It would be shaped like a paw print and a leaf joined together, symbolizing both the wild and the woodland. Birds would arrange colored leaves from above. Mice would lay tiny stones in perfect patterns. Elephants would carve soft paths in the earth with their feet. The work began at dawn. Creatures that had once avoided one another now worked side by side. A snake carried vines in its mouth. Frogs watered young sprouts. Birds flew overhead giving directions. The sound of laughter, chirps, growls, and trills alike echoed through the clearing. By sundown, the emblem was complete. A living design, vibrant and alive, grown from cooperation. Elio gazed down from a hill. "We've built more than a sign," he said. "We've built trust." "And hope," Milo added. As stars appeared in the night sky, the council of creatures feasted together. Not on each other, but on berries, nuts, honeycombs, and mushrooms gifted by the forest. They had come as strangers. They stayed as one. A message from the sky. Days turned into weeks, and the forest returned to its gentle rhythm, yet a quiet anticipation hummed beneath the canopy. Birds flew higher than ever before, checking the skies for signs of return. Mice listened to the tremble of the earth, alert for unnatural footsteps. The emblem they had built stood proudly in the clearing, an eternal symbol of unity. One clear morning, as mist curled around tree trunks like sleepy snakes, a sharp cry pierced the air. A red-tailed hawk circled above, letting out an urgent screech. "Humans! They're back!" squawked the hawk. From the treetops to the burrows, the call spread like fire. Birds swooped. Deer galloped. Squirrels leapt from branch to branch. And within minutes, the council of creatures assembled again beneath their emblem. "They've returned sooner than we feared," Milo whispered. "Too soon." "They're not cutting yet," said Vexa the fox, sniffing the air. "But they're walking, measuring, marking trees with red paint." "It means they are planning," Elio said. His deep voice trembled with frustration. "We must act quickly." "But what can we do now?" asked a young raccoon. "We already scared them away once." Milo stood atop a mossy stone. "Last time we surprised them. Now we must speak to them, not through fear, but through a message they can understand." "But they don't speak our language," said a frog. "We don't need to speak," Elio said. "We need to show." Milo's eyes lit up. "The emblem. They will see it again. But this time we guide them to it." The plan unfolded like a blooming flower. Birds would lead the humans, flying in patterns above their heads. Foxes and deer would stay just out of reach, letting themselves be glimpsed. Mice would create trails of leaves and feathers pointing toward the emblem. It was a delicate dance of curiosity, not confrontation. The next morning, as the sun warmed the forest, 2 humans entered, one tall and serious, with a thick folder of papers, the other younger, carrying a camera. As they moved deeper into the forest, a pair of bright blue jays flitted just above them, cawing excitedly. "Did you see that?" the younger human asked. "They're flying in circles." Then came the fox, sleek and russet, slipping through the ferns. She paused just long enough to be seen before dashing ahead. "What was that?" "Look here," the older human said, kneeling. "A pattern in the leaves, almost like arrows." They followed the trail, their steps slow and cautious. A deer appeared and vanished between trees. A family of mice scurried by but didn't flee in fear. Instead, they stopped, turned, and continued along the trail. Finally, the clearing opened before them. The humans stopped short. There it was, the forest emblem, leaf and pie, earth and life, glowing with sunlight. Around it stood the animals. Elio and his herd at the back, proud and strong. Mice beside squirrels. Fox beside badger. Birds overhead in gentle circles. The humans didn't speak for a long time. The younger one lifted the camera with trembling hands and took photo after photo. "I've never seen anything like this," he whispered. It's like they made it together. The older human removed his hat. This forest isn't just trees. It's alive, connected. A bluebird fluttered down and landed near the emblem, tilting its head at them. The older Mun looked around. We can't build here. We can't destroy this. Back in the city, the photographs spread like wildfire. The emblem appeared on screens, in newspapers, in reports. Children wrote letters begging to protect the forest. Scientists called it an ecological wonder. Artists painted it. Poets wrote verses about it. Within a month, the plans to cut down the forest were cancelled. The glade was declared a protected sanctuary. Back in the forest, the Council of Creatures celebrated with song and dance. Birds sang from the tallest branches. Frogs croaked in joyous rhythm. Elio trumpeted so loudly that flowers shook their petals. Milo stood beside him, smiling. They saw us, the mouse said. Really saw us. Because we stood together, Elio replied. Not with fear, but with unity. That night, the animals gathered beneath a full moon. The emblem glowed silver in the moonlight, and each creature added something new to it, a feather, a petal, a stone, marking the moment not just of survival, but of harmony. And from that night on, whenever a child asked about the forest emblem, they were told a tale not just of an elephant and a mouse, but of a forest that spoke without words, and of creatures, great and small, who proved that when united, they were stronger than anything.